Thank you very much. So our final talk in this session will be from Theresa Kneppers, who's curator and researcher at London South Bank University, who will be talking about Creating Digital Intimacy, a Polyvocal audio guide workshop. Thanks.
Hi. Let me just get this ready. All right. I'm Theresa Kneppers, and I'm the curator of a David Bomberg legacy, the Sarah Rose collection, and I'm a researcher at the Center for the Study of the Networked Image. The collection is a collection of modern British works, and when I became the curator, I started to consider the site of the internet as part of my work. So that's included commissioning born digital works, but also running more digital-based workshops. So today I'm going to share a case study about audio-based online workshops that sort of reimagined user interaction with the Sarah Rose Collection's digital archive. These workshops explored the creation of polyvocal audio guides to foster intimacy, and by that I mean the sort of co-creation and dialogue in online environments. So through these workshops, we uncovered both the transformative potential of collaborative interpretation and the sort of challenges of reconciling curatorial control with user agency. The case study highlights how museums can adapt to engage new digital audiences while balancing inclusivity, creativity, and accessibility. So this is the platform that we designed using MediaWiki, and I built this with a media artist. You can see some of the works that have been digitized from the original collection, and then they've expanded to include things from the archive. So there's posters and former workshops. There's a series on the backs of paintings. There's audio and GIFs and videos. So the Sarah Rose collection, part of the challenge was that we were closed for over 2 years during COVID, and how to address this issue of access is that part of it was this digitization, and part of it was thinking about what our programming would be. So limited access, it was in part addressed by this digitization, but we kept coming up with this issue of very passive users, and so we're just trying to think of, well, what would be a way to get people more involved in spending more time with these objects. So some of the techniques is really from museum education and thinking about slow looking. So what is a participatory relationship between audience and digital objects, and transforming them into a dynamic, evolving archive rather than the static website that we were working with before. So I won't go into all these different things, but it's sort of like a game or an intervention into the website, so you can play as a curator or a fortune teller, but I'm going to focus on the audio guide aspect today. So we tested a collaborative approach by hosting workshops where participants use sound to reinterpret digital objects. By combining deep listening, embodied looking, and experimental audio techniques, we aim to create this idea of digital intimacy and a sense of closeness in the online space. So I worked with different artists, audio-based artists, on these workshops. One was an artist named Bill Daggs and another named Artemis Skrilecki, and they kind of introduced different ideas of working with audio, so kind of unconventional audio techniques, and inviting participants to reflect on the form itself of the museum audio guide and create new responses and experiment with digital tools. So these workshops challenge traditional curatorial frameworks, enabling co-creation of meaning between curator, user, and the digital archive. So you can see here in the slide, this is sort of one of the steps you could take. So people would write their own interpretation, and then different people could interpret, then read these different responses. That was sort of the first level of the workshop. So participants started in the session sort of sharing these anecdotes about museum audio guides, and then they explored soundscapes using everyday material. So it was just really what's around them. When one of the kind of fun ones that people did, they were using Doritos and accelerators to make this kind of crunchy response to this video of a quite static dance. And I've never sort of seen that piece in that same way before. But later in the session, participants contributed sound files, either found or created, bringing everything from sort of technology-inspired noises to personal recordings for real-time mixing. So Bill really worked with all the different participants, and he created different mixes with them. And then Artemis worked in this different way. We all were online together, and it was sort of a Greek chorus idea. So people, we all looked at the same object together and then turned our cameras off, and then people sort of started to sing or create tapping noises or create something with instruments, and that was recorded together as the audio response to that piece. And then we had a listening project of us looking together at the same piece and listening to what we created. So some of the key lessons of running this has really been the collaborative workshops revealed how digital collections can transcend traditional museum boundaries, creating spaces for co-creation. So this is sort of a challenge with balancing the curatorial prompts with true user agency and ensuring accessibility and inclusivity in the digital tools. One of the things about our audience is that it's a university-based collection, so there's a younger audience, and then the modern British aspect of the collection really attracts a very different demographic. So when these people came together in these audio guides, they had different kind of fluency with different types of digital tools and comfort just in the uploading of files. So what we did to kind of facilitate this is we always had people on board to real-time respond and kind of deal with that frustration that can sometimes be a real barrier to participation. This is an example from our co-writing pad. So we used a pad for some of these workshops, and you can see some of the exercises as they were laid out and unfolded. Some of these are taken from Pauline Olivares about deep listening. I really recommend looking into her work. And these workshops really created this space for personal and collective responses and illustrated the sort of dual nature of digital tools. They expand access, and you had more people participating than we could have in the gallery at the time, and but introduce these new barriers. So adapting to these dynamics is critical for our future engagement. So part of the when we were working together, it was nice responses from different people. That there was a frustration with this digital tool aspect, but the nice responses is one of the participants said that they felt like they were collaborating across decades. So they were using found audio clips to respond to pieces that were from the 1920s, and they had found audio from that time. And then other people had these very different, they had created these different singing or vocal pieces to respond to works that had happened that were then being created and added to the archive. So there's a collections issue here, and I suppose this relates in a way to the question of where do these things sit within the museum. So I'm essentially creating more archive, which is a collection that how do they then sit with all the other things that are in the archive, and how do we attribute what has been added, and how do we, how do we name the users as the artists, and what happens in these collaborative projects. So I guess the sort of final thought is by empowering users to co-create and reinterpret, we can sort of unlock new ways to connect with digital heritage. So the first site, if you want to see more of this project, you can listen on the second link. The first one is just an overview of the work that we're doing in general. And these approaches challenge us to rethink just how we use digital tools, but also who participates in shaping our cultural narratives. I think that was a real issue, as going back to Nora's question of where it sits. So I think that's what we're thinking next as a collection. What do we do as this archive grows, as people add more material to it? How do we classify it? How do we access it? How do we label it? So I hope to discuss that further. Thank you.